My name's Claire. I'm 38, a single mom of two, and for the most part, I stay in my lane, keep the peace, and try to be the glue when everyone else falls apart. But this time, I snapped the glue stick in half. It started with my daughter, Ava. She's 13, brilliant at Canva, obsessed with making things aesthetic, and also happens to use a wheelchair. Not that the chair defines her unless, of course, you're my niece Ivy, who apparently thought it ruined the vibe of her jungle-themed 12th birthday bash. Let me rewind a little. Ava spent 3 whole weeks helping my sister, her aunt, plan this birthday party. We're talking color palettes, centerpieces, digital invites, with bouncing monkeys and fake tribal drums. Yeah, they went full jungle. She folded napkins, edited the welcome board, picked out party favors. I paid for most of it, $2,700 total. Yeah, let that number sit with you. But the week before the party, Ava came to me with this weird look on her face and said, "Mom, is it weird that I still haven't gotten my invite?" My stomach dipped a little, but I brushed it off. "Probably just a tech thing," I said. "Spam folder? Wrong email?" Ava had checked. Twice an hour, every day. Before school, after dinner, even while waiting for our curbside pickup at Target. Nothing. Still, I tried to stay optimistic. My sister Elle is chaotic. Full-time job, 3 kids, always 5 minutes late to everything, and constantly in the middle of some drama that she swears she didn't cause. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Big mistake. I called her, put it on speaker, since Ava was with me, folding those cute little leaf print napkins into perfect triangles. I kept it casual, said, "Hey, just wondering if Ava's invite got stuck in the mail or something." Silence. Then Elle finally said it. "Yeah, so Ivy asked if Ava could, sit this one out." Like she was talking about skipping a group project, not excluding a child from a party she literally helped build. I blinked. "Sorry, what?" She just thought maybe the wheelchair thing would make it too serious. She wants it to be light. Fun. Light and fun. As if my daughter's existence was a downer. As if the wheels under her chair were some kind of party killer. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just looked at Ava, who had stopped folding napkins mid-triangle. She didn't look up. Didn't cry. Just sat there like she was trying to disappear. I ended the call, quietly. Because the last thing my kid needed was to hear me lose it. We sat in silence, while the jungle-themed playlist played some horrible faux drum beat in the background. Finally, Ava said, "So, she doesn't want me there." It wasn't a question, it was just truth. And it broke me. Not just because she was right, but because she said it like she'd been expecting it. I took a deep breath. "He's an idiot," I said. "You made this whole party happen." She nodded, eyes still fixed on the table. "I thought maybe they forgot," she whispered. "I didn't think they'd just leave me out." I couldn't answer that. Not in a way that didn't involve several F-bombs and flipping a table. So I just sat there. Later that night, when Ava was in her room, I opened a spreadsheet. The one Elle had called me a lifesaver for. I stared at the numbers, $900 for the venue, $250 for the bounce house, which Ava couldn't even use, $400 for the cake, which was shaped like a freaking jungle vine, $175 for, the party favors $500 for, the catering $475 for decorations and delivery fees, and none of it included the hours Ava put into it. The time she spent making every little corner look magical. They didn't just forget her, they used her. And then they locked her out. And I paid for it. That night, I made a decision. We weren't going. Not me. Not Ava. Not her little brother Noah. But we were going to send a gift. Ava didn't say much the next morning at breakfast, but when I told her we weren't going, she just nodded like she already knew. Then I added, "We're sending something, though." She looked up. "What kind of something?" I smiled. "One they won't forget." She raised an eyebrow. "Like a glitter bomb?" "Tempting," the first said. "But no, classier. Way classier." A few seconds passed. Then she gave me the tiniest smile I'd seen since that phone call. "I'm in." And just like that, the fog in her eyes started to lift. What came next wasn't revenge. Not really. We weren't going to burn down their party. We were going to send the truth wrapped in shiny green ribbon, jungle theme and all, because they wanted her invisible. We were going to make sure that when they looked at that party, They saw her everywhere. What they didn't realize was that quiet girls have loud power, and we were just getting started. We didn't say much about the gift after that. Not at first. It was like this quiet understanding had settled between us. Ava didn't ask for details, and I didn't offer them right away. I think she needed to feel like she could trust me to carry the weight of it, that she didn't have to fix everything this time. That morning, while Noah got ready for school, I pulled out the list of vendors I'd booked and paid for: the magician, the balloon artist, the candy cart, the guy with the animal face painting station. Yeah, it was that kind of party. I emailed each of them one by one, told them there had been a change of address, asked if they could reroute their services to my place instead. Some were confused at first, but all of them said yes, no extra charge, no questions. Just sure, we can do that. I could have cried. It wasn't just about moving a party. It was about rewriting the narrative. Ava wasn't going to be the afterthought this time. She was going to be the center of something good, something better. While I made those calls, I also sent a few texts to parents I trusted. Not a lot, just the ones who had shown up before, not for show, but because they cared. People who asked how Ava was doing and actually waited for the answer. I told them the truth, not the dramatized version, just what happened. Ava wasn't invited because of her wheelchair. And they all knew what that meant, even if I didn't spell it out. Some of them cried, others asked what they could bring. And by noon, we had ourselves a new party. Same decorations, same food, same tricks and treats, but in our own backyard. For Ava, with her at the heart of it. That evening, Ava finally asked what we were sending to Ivy's party. I smiled. Something simple, I said. Just a box. But what's inside? That'll speak for itself. She didn't press, just nodded like she knew whatever it was going to do the job. Noah, on the other hand, was all in. He was 10, full of righteous rage and chaotic energy. I hope the balloons pop before they even get them up, he muttered at dinner, stabbing his chicken nugget like it personally offended him. I hope the cake melts. Noah, I warned, but I wasn't really mad. Ava was the one who grinned first. I hope the magician gets the flu and cancels. Okay. That's a bit much, I said, trying not to laugh. Fine. I hope he loses his magic wand. It was silly. But that little back and forth over dinner, that was the first real laugh I'd heard from Ava in days. It felt like a win. Later that night, I sat on my bed and pulled up the party invite again. The digital one Ivy sent out with the dancing jungle animals and animated glitter. Everyone else got it. Elle sent it to our cousins, to my ex-husband, even my dad, who still uses a flip phone and probably couldn't open it if he tried. But not Ava. She'd refreshed her inbox for 3 straight weeks, like she was waiting for a miracle. She got it silenced. And what haunted me wasn't the missing invite, it was that no one noticed. Or maybe they did. Maybe they just didn't care. That was the part I kept circling back to. The silence, the kind that doesn't happen by accident. I scrolled through the RSVP list. Every name was there, all the cousins, family friends, aunts who barely show up for Christmas. Every single person Elle had deemed worthy of witnessing Ivy's big day. None of them said a word about Ava's absence. Not one. And suddenly it clicked. This wasn't just one kid making a selfish choice. This was a whole group of adults who went along with it. Whether they meant to or not, they made it okay. They co-signed exclusion dressed up as simplicity. And I wasn't about to let that slide quietly. The next morning, I wrapped the gift. It was a beautiful box white with a deep green satin ribbon, hand-tied in a bow. Jungle theme, of course. Inside was a tablet, fully charged, set to autoplay a video Ava and I had filmed together. She sat at the kitchen table in her favorite green dress, the one with the little gold buttons down the front, the one she said made her feel like she belonged in a fairy tale. Her voice was calm when she spoke, measured but steady. Hi, I'm Ava. I helped make a lot of this party. The screen cut to clips I'd recorded without her knowing, her gluing tiny leaves to the welcome sign, tying bows on favor bags, choosing fonts for the name tags. Then her again. I was really excited to come, but I never got an invite. Because of my wheelchair, we didn't embellish, we didn't add commentary, just the facts. Clear, unapologetic. I didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable, she continued. I just wanted people to know. Because if it happened to me, it might be happening to other kids too. She looked straight into the camera. So we're throwing a different party today. There's games, there's food, and anyone who feels left out, you're invited. The video faded to black. One line popped up, address is on the back of the tag. I closed the box, tied the ribbon, added a gold tag that said, "To Ivy, from Ava." No anger, no shade, just that. The next day, while Ivy's party ramped up, ours was already buzzing. Balloons tied to the fence, magician pulling scarves out of his sleeve, music playing on our old Bluetooth speaker. Kids ran around the yard, some I recognized, some I didn't. Parents showed up with snacks and folding chairs. One even brought a cooler of lemonade jars with Ava's name written in glitter across the front. Noah manned the candy cart like a tiny sugar dealer. Ava wore the same green dress. She looked radiant, still a little guarded, but glowing in that way people do when they're finally seen. The mood was light, easy, but I kept checking my phone, waiting, wondering when the other shoe would drop. I didn't expect it to be so fast. The moment someone opened that gift, everything started unraveling. The whispers, the gasps. A few people recognized Ava's voice immediately. Others were confused, some angry, not at us at L, at the decision, at the silence. Because once the truth is out, it's out. And when it comes wrapped in gold ribbon and spoken in a child's voice, there's no spinning it. One mom stood up, then another. Then whole families started quietly packing up. They weren't dramatic about it. They didn't yell or argue. They just left. One little girl looked around and said, "That's really mean." And honestly, that's all it took. I got a text 30 minutes later from a cousin. Half the party's gone. Elle's freaking out. Whatever was in that box. Chef's kiss. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Ava sat on our porch swing, sipping lemonade through a paper straw. Her shoulders relaxed, her head tilted up to the sun like she was finally exhaling after weeks of holding her breath. And in that moment, I wasn't just her mom, I was her shield. And this time, I didn't flinch. By the time most of Ivy's party guests were gone, I wasn't even thinking about revenge anymore. It didn't feel like payback, it felt like truth, finally speaking louder than silence. Ava didn't need to yell to be heard. All she had to do was tell her story and let people decide for themselves. And they did. I kept getting text after text. Some were shocked, some furious, but none of them blamed her. If anything, they felt ashamed they hadn't noticed sooner. One mom even wrote, "I just assumed she was sick or out of town. I didn't ask. That's on me." There was a shift happening, and it had nothing to do with party favors or balloons. It was deeper than that. People saw the box, the video, the girl behind the screen, and they understood exactly what had happened, even if they couldn't say it out loud yet. But not everyone responded with reflection. Elle didn't take it well. I got the first call about an hour after the party ended. Didn't answer. Then came the group text, "We need to talk about what you did." I ignored it. She followed up with an email, long and self-righteous, subject line screaming like a warning siren. "You crossed the line." I didn't even open it. I didn't need to. I already knew what it would say. I could practically hear her voice through the subject alone. How dare I hijack her daughter's special day? How manipulative it was to ambush the family like that. How Ava had been weaponized for sympathy. That's how she'd spin it. It's always projection with people like her. They do something cruel, and when you hold up a mirror, suddenly you're the monster for making them look. But the part I wasn't ready for was the second wave. She didn't stop at being mad. She started lying. She told our relatives that Ava had been invited, claimed there was a scheduling issue, said it must have gotten lost in junk mail, said she was devastated that Ava chose not to come. Then she told people I staged the whole thing, that I forced Ava to make that video, that I edited it to make her son look bad, as if Ava wasn't old enough, strong enough, and clear enough to speak her own truth. She even went as far as to say Ava was acting out, that her wheelchair had become her whole personality. That phrase stuck with me like a splinter under the skin. Like needing mobility support was some kind of character flaw. I almost responded. I really did. I sat there one night with my laptop open, drafting a reply, attached screenshots of every receipt, every payment, every message. I even pulled the call log from the day she told me Ava wasn't welcome. But then I stopped. Not because I didn't have proof, but because I realized something she hadn't. When you tell the truth in a house full of windows, you don't need to scream to be believed. People had already seen it, heard it, felt it. Her damage control wasn't landing because the story was no longer hers to control. Kids talk. So do parents. One mom whose son had left Ivy's party early made a post in a parenting group on Facebook. She didn't name names, but she didn't need to. The message was clear. It was about exclusion, about how easily we justify hurting kids in the name of simplicity, about how silence makes you complicit. The post blew up, shared dozens of times. Another mom uploaded a short clip from the video with the caption, "She helped plan the party, then wasn't invited." Because of her wheelchair, the comments came fast and loud. People were angry, not performatively, genuinely. Ava didn't just strike a nerve. She reminded people of every time their own kid was left out. Every time someone smiled politely while doing something cruel behind closed doors. One woman wrote, "This is what ableism looks like. It's subtle, it's quiet, but it's real." Another said, "That girl is braver than most adults I know." Elle tried to clap back, made a few cryptic posts about toxic advocacy and false narratives, but it didn't stick. The sympathy she expected never showed up, because public support doesn't live long when people have seen the footage. The best defense against spin is receipts, and Ava's voice was the receipt. Steady, calm, heartbreaking in its clarity. A few days passed. Then Elle finally texted me directly. Just one line, "You've destroyed this family. Hope you're proud." I stared at it for a long time. Then I responded, "You uninvited my daughter from a party she helped build. You erased her. Then you lied about it. This family was already broken. I just stopped pretending it wasn't. That was it. No back and forth, no more defense. I meant what I said. And I wasn't going to walk it back just because she couldn't handle the consequences of her choices. But it didn't stop there, because when people lose control of the narrative, they look for new ways to regain power. Ava came home from school later that week, with her shoulders slumped and her eyes red-rimmed. She dropped her bag in the hallway and said, "Ty said I hacked his mom's email. Told everyone I deleted my invite." I blinked. He said what? Also that I faked the video and made you edit it to make him look bad. Her voice was flat, not angry, just tired, the kind of tired you feel when you've been trying too hard for too long. I sat her down, asked gently, "Do you believe any of that?" She shook her head. "No, but it still sucks." I nodded. "It does. I'm sorry." She didn't cry, didn't rage, just quietly accepted the weight of another blow. And that's what broke me the most. Not the lies, not the fallout, but how familiar the hurt had become to her. Later that evening, we baked brownies. She didn't want to, said she wasn't in the mood, but I handed her the spoon anyway and told her she could lick the bowl when we were done. She rolled her eyes. "I'm not 6. Doesn't matter," I said. "You earned it." She smiled finally, just a little, and for a second, it felt like enough. The next day, her school counselor called. Apparently, a few kids, including some who weren't invited to Ivy's party either, had started sitting together at lunch. Nothing official, just a table. Ava hadn't organized it. She hadn't asked for it. But she showed up every day, listened, made space. The counselor said they'd started calling it Ava's table. I thanked her, then sat in my car and cried for 10 minutes before I could drive home. I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was crying because in the middle of all that mess, Ava hadn't just survived it. She'd transformed it, made something better, made space where there was none. That weekend, the house felt quieter, not heavy, just still, like something had settled. Like maybe, for once, the damage wasn't mine to clean up. And honestly, that felt new and good. The week after the party, the calls stopped, but the silence wasn't peaceful, it was loaded, tight, like the kind you feel before a thunderstorm. My parents left one voicemail. They sounded like they were reading from a script neither of them believed in. My mom's voice wobbled around phrases like, "We're just sad, and no one wanted this to happen," while my dad's contribution was a barely audible sigh and a rushed, "You two need to work this out." I didn't call back, not because I was trying to be cruel, but because that sentence said everything. You two, like this was a spat between equals. Like Ava getting erased was the same as Elle getting embarrassed. Like exclusion and exposure were somehow two sides of the same coin. That was the thing about being the quiet one for so long. When you finally speak up, everyone assumes the volume is the problem, not the silence that came before it. I didn't need to yell, I just wasn't whispering anymore. I started pulling back from everything after that. No more holiday planning texts, no offers to help with last-minute birthday errands, no friendly reminders for group gift deadlines. I removed myself from the family group chat. I didn't announce it, just left. My parents didn't follow up. That told me what I needed to know. When people say they're neutral in a situation built on harm, what they're really saying is they benefit more from your silence than your truth. I wasn't angry anymore, not really. What I felt was cleaner than that, like setting down a weight you forgot you were carrying, like realizing you don't owe access to people just because they share your blood. I took the final invoice from the party folder and marked it canceled. I had booked a caricature artist Elle wanted at the last minute and never paid for. I let her figure it out herself. That's not revenge. That's boundaries. It felt good, uncomplicated, like closing a tab that's been slowing everything else down. Meanwhile, Ava kept showing up, not just to school, but to herself. I watched her from the kitchen window one afternoon, helping Noah fix a chain on his bike. Her hands were covered in grease, her gold headband slipping sideways, and she looked settled, not healed. That's too easy, but rooted. Like she finally understood she didn't need permission to exist. The club at school grew. What started as 4 kids at one lunch table became nearly a dozen. They didn't call themselves anything official, but kids started saying things like, "You can sit at Ava's table if you're new," or "Go there if you're alone." She didn't lead with a microphone or demand attention. She just showed up with kindness and consistency. And somehow, that did more than any speech could. The counselor told me she'd never seen anything like it. Said Ava was a natural bridge. Someone who made people feel seen just by being there. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat with that for a while. Not just the compliment, but the weight of it. Because that's who Ava had always been. And for years, the people closest to her acted like she was inconvenient. Too quiet, too different, too much. Or not enough, depending on the day. But now, here she was, quietly building a world that welcomed others the way she never had been. Elle stayed loud online for a few more days. Posted vague quotes about betrayal and people who thrive on drama. She never mentioned names. Didn't have to. Anyone who saw the video knew. I didn't respond. Didn't like. Didn't share. Didn't block her either. Let her words float out into the void, unanswered. Eventually, even that stopped. Her silence didn't feel like surrender, though. It felt like strategy. That's the part that always made her dangerous. Not her rage, but her rehearsed innocence. The way she could spin chaos into confusion and make people question what they'd seen with their own eyes. But this time, it didn't work. People had watched Ava's video on repeat. They remembered her voice, the steadiness in it, the softness that landed like thunder. And no amount of backpedaling could erase that. Then, out of nowhere, I got a text from someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. A cousin. We weren't close. Grew up together but drifted after college. She messaged, "Hey, just saw the video. I'm sorry. I didn't know, but I should have asked. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. Just hearted the message and left it there." Sometimes people think apologies need a dialogue, but sometimes the most respectful thing you can do is let someone sit with the silence they created. The only person I kept hearing from consistently was Ava's best friend Lila's mom. She'd been at the new party, brought cookies and lemonade, and stayed until we were cleaning up paper plates from the grass. She texted a few days later with a screenshot of her daughter's school essay. The prompt had been "Write about a leader in your life." Lila had written about Ava. She said Ava made people feel less invisible. That she didn't talk over others but somehow made everyone feel heard. That when she smiles, it feels like you just got let in on a secret that makes everything a little better. I showed it to Ava. She got quiet, read it 3 times, then asked if she could keep a copy. She folded it carefully and slid it into the back of her notebook like it was something sacred. And maybe it was. Maybe being seen that clearly, that kindly, is a kind of sacred. And just when I thought the dust had finally settled, just when I started to believe we were past the fallout, Elle found one more way to twist the knife. She called Ava's school, said she was concerned, claimed Ava was spreading misinformation and being coached by me to make dramatic, emotionally manipulative content. She framed it as a worried relative just trying to protect the kids. The principal called me in, polite, uncomfortable, clearly just trying to follow protocol. I sat through it without flinching. explained everything, showed the emails, the texts, even played the call where Elle admitted Ava wasn't wanted. The principal's expression shifted about halfway through, from skeptical to furious. She apologized at the end, profusely, said Ava was a role model and that they were lucky to have her. I nodded, thanked her, then walked out and sat in my car again. This time, I didn't cry. I just stared out the windshield and let the quiet hold me, because it wasn't about Elle anymore. Not really. It was about unlearning the idea that being the bigger person means staying silent while someone kicks you. It was about protecting my daughter not just from others, but from the lie that kindness equals compliance. And maybe most of all, it was about breaking the cycle I'd been caught in for most of my life. The one where I bend and bend and bend until the only version of me people recognize is the one that fits their comfort zone. I was done shrinking, for them, for anyone. Ava wasn't going to grow up watching her mom disappear so others could feel better about themselves. Not anymore. Ava didn't ask about the school meeting. I think she knew something had happened but was giving me space to bring it up if I wanted to. That was always her way, watchful, intuitive, never pushing too hard. I decided not to tell her. Not because I was trying to protect her from the truth, but because she didn't need to carry any more of it. She already knew who her aunt was. She already understood the weight of being seen as too much by people who were supposed to love her unconditionally. What mattered more now was not dragging her back into the mess when she was finally starting to feel free of it. That weekend, she got her first party invite since the video. A classmate she barely knew handed her a small envelope folded like origami, with her name written in blue glitter pen across the front. She opened it in the car, read it twice, then handed it to me silently like she was afraid to hope too fast. The invite said, "You were the first person I wanted to ask. You seem like the kind of person who makes things better just by being there." Ava didn't say a word. She just looked out the window, but her hand reached over and rested on my arm the entire drive home. That night, she picked out her outfit 2 days in advance. She asked if we could curl her hair. She charged the little Polaroid camera she hadn't touched in months. She smiled, not the small, polite kind, but the real one that crinkled her eyes and reached her shoulders. I knew better than to comment. She didn't want a speech. She just wanted the moment to exist without someone labeling it. So I stayed quiet and let her glow. When she came back from the party, she had 2 new friends, a cupcake container half filled with confetti, and glitter on her shoes. She looked taller, not physically, but like something inside her had stretched out and settled into itself. She handed me the paper wristband they'd given out at the door. It said "All are welcome" in bold block letters. She taped it to her mirror. It's still there. A few days later, Elle's silence cracked. She didn't call or text me this time. She went to our parents, told them I was poisoning Ava against her, claimed I'd manipulated the video, that I'd used my daughter to get attention and ruin Ivy's birthday out of jealousy. My mom left another voicemail, her tone different, now sharp around the edges, like she was trying to stay balanced on a sinking ship. She said, "We're caught in the middle. We just want things back to how they were." That line hit harder than it should have. Back to how they were. As if the past was a safe place. As if Ava being cropped out of photos, excluded from parties, ignored in conversations that was balance. As if me swallowing hurt for years to keep the peace was harmony. I didn't call back. I didn't need to. I wasn't interested in going back. I was building something else. Something Ava could stand on without wondering if it would crack beneath her. That Friday, Noah came home with a drawing. It was a picture of our backyard with the balloons, the lemonade table, and Ava in the center wearing her green dress. In crayon, he'd written "Best day ever." I hung it on the fridge, right next to the Polaroid Ava had taken of her and her new friends. It felt like a shrine to the kind of life we were starting to claim, one with fewer apologies, fewer expectations, and no room for guilt disguised as tradition. A week later, a friend of mine, someone I hadn't spoken to in a while, sent me a link to a private Facebook group for parents of kids with disabilities. Someone had shared Ava's video there, said it gave them the courage to call out a relative who kept making excuses about accessibility. The post had over 200 comments, people thanking Ava for saying what they'd been afraid to say. One woman wrote, "My daughter saw your video and said, 'She looks like me.' I didn't think girls like us got to be the main character." I showed it to Ava, Her mouth parted like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. Then she just nodded and wiped her eyes on her sleeve. She didn't need words. Neither did I. That night, I let her stay up late. We watched a movie, made popcorn with too much butter, and laughed at the dumbest scenes. She leaned against me during the credits and whispered, "Do you think she meant it?" I didn't pretend not to know what she meant. "Yeah," I said. "I do. It's weird," she said. "I didn't even say anything that special. That's the point," I told her. "You didn't have to perform. You just told the truth. And people saw themselves in it." She nodded slowly. "That feels kind of big." I smiled. "It is." The next morning, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, it was Elle. No warning, no heads up. Just standing there like nothing had happened, holding a box of cookies and wearing that practiced expression that always came right before a new version of the truth. She launched into a monologue before I could say a word, said she'd been thinking a lot, said she'd made mistakes, said things got blown out of proportion, and we'd all suffered enough. Then she said the part that made my stomach turn. It's not like we meant to hurt her. Not I. We. Like the wound was a shared accident, not a direct choice. Like she hadn't been the one who said the words out loud, who watched Ava fold napkins for a party she wasn't allowed to attend. She was standing there waiting for grace. For the kind of forgiveness people expect when they acknowledge harm without taking responsibility for it. I didn't give it to her. I didn't yell. I didn't slam the door. I just said, "Ava's not a footnote to your growth arc." Her expression faltered. She tried to recover. Offered the cookies again like sugar could fix what silence had fractured. "We're family," she said softly, as if that word still had meaning here. "No," I replied. "We're related." "That's not the same thing." She didn't know what to say after that. I closed the door before she figured it out. Ava was in the hallway watching. I hadn't realized she'd heard the whole thing. She didn't say anything at first. Then she asked, "Do you think she really came to apologize?" I shrugged. "I think she came to erase the evidence of what happened." Ava nodded. "I'm glad you didn't let her." That night, we made pancakes for dinner. Ava flipped them while Noah danced around the kitchen with syrup bottles. I couldn't stop thinking about what Ava had said about being seen, about being believed. It hit me that what she needed most wasn't a family that got it right all the time. It was one that didn't rewrite the story when they got it wrong. And that's what I was building now. Not perfection, just a home that didn't require her to shrink to fit inside it. I used to think peace would come when everything was fixed, when the people who hurt us realized what they'd done and begged to make it right. But that's not how it happens. Peace comes when you stop hoping for things that were never real to begin with. It's not about closure, it's about release. Letting go of the version of the story where everyone sees the light and finally treats your child the way she deserves to be treated. That version is tempting, but it's a trap. Because the longer you wait for it, the longer you stay stuck in a story that was never about you. After Elle's doorstep visit, things went quiet again. Not the loaded kind this time, not the kind that waits to explode. This silence felt like space, a pause that wasn't afraid of itself. My parents called once more, left a voicemail that didn't ask how Ava was doing, didn't mention what happened, just said they missed the old days and hoped I'd find it in my heart to move on. I deleted it without listening to the end, not out of spite, just clarity. The old days were built on the parts of me that went unseen. I wasn't going back to that, and I wasn't raising Ava to think it was normal. We didn't talk about Elle much after that. Ava didn't bring her up, and I didn't push. Sometimes she'd pause in the hallway by the fridge, glance at Noah's drawing or the party photo, and smile like she was checking in with something only she understood. I caught her once rereading the invitation from the classmate who had written you, "Make things better." She folded it back into its envelope with the kind of care people usually reserve for things that save them. That weekend, we went out to a diner we'd never been to, just the three of us. Pancakes at 7 p.m., mismatched mugs, sticky syrup bottles, and a jukebox in the corner that only played songs older than I was. Noah tried to guess which button would play Elvis. Ava made fun of him for calling it Elvis Juice Box. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. It was ordinary in the most perfect way. No one asked us to explain ourselves. No one stared at the chair. No one talked over Ava. She was just a girl in a green hoodie, laughing with her brother and drawing shapes in syrup with a butter knife. And for a moment, it felt like everything that mattered was inside that booth. The next week, I got a message from the school counselor. She said Ava had been nominated for a peer leadership award, not for grades, not for sports, but for creating what she called a culture of belonging. I read the email twice, then forwarded it to Ava without saying anything. A few hours later, she came into the kitchen with her phone in hand, cheeks pink. "Did you know about this?" I nodded. "Yep," she smiled, then said, "Do I have to make a speech? Only if you want to?" She looked down at her phone again. "I kind of do." A pause. Then she added, "But not for them, just for the kids who are still sitting alone." That was Ava. Always speaking to the quiet corners no one else noticed. Always thinking about who wasn't in the room. A few days later, she gave that speech. It wasn't long. She didn't raise her voice. She just stood there in the middle of the school gym, microphone too big for her hand, and said, "Sometimes people won't make space for you, so you make it yourself. And then you hold the door open for the next person." There was a pause after she finished, the kind that makes you hold your breath. Then someone clapped, then more. It wasn't wild or loud, just steady, like rain. I watched from the back row, hand over my heart like I was trying to keep it from bursting. Afterward, a teacher I didn't know tapped me on the shoulder. She said, "You must be proud." I didn't say the usual thing. I didn't nod or say yes. Very. I just said, "She did that all on her own." Because she did. I helped her find the tools, maybe. But the voice? That was hers. The strength? That was built from every time she was told she didn't belong and showed up anyway. That night, we sat on the porch again, wrapped in mismatched blankets and watching the sun melt into the sky. Ava looked older somehow, or maybe just more herself. She asked, "Do you ever wish we had just gone to the party and ignored it?" I thought about it, really thought, then said, "No. I wish they'd invited you, but I don't wish we had stayed quiet about what happened." She nodded. "Me neither. Even if it made everything weird. Especially because it did," I said. "The truth usually makes things weird at first, but then it makes them better." She smiled and whispered, "I hope it stays better." I didn't promise it would. I just said, "We'll keep choosing better. That's what matters." The next morning, I found the wristband again, the one that said, "All are welcome." It had fallen off the corner of her mirror and landed behind the dresser. I picked it up, brushed off a little dust, and stuck it back in place. A small reminder of a big shift, of what it meant to draw a circle wide enough for everyone. Later that week, she got another party invite, then another. The girl who once watched her inbox like it owed her something now had a calendar with color-coded events. Some she accepted, some she didn't. But each time, she made the choice on her own. That was the power she had now. Not just being included, but knowing she belonged with or without someone else's approval. And me? I stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. I stopped keeping space in my heart for people who only made room for us when it was convenient. I didn't feel bitter, I felt clear. Like I could finally hear my own voice over the hum of everyone else's expectations. One evening, Noah asked if we'd ever see Ivy again. I said, maybe. He asked if she'd be allowed over for dinner. I said, not until she understands why she wasn't before. He thought about that, then said, I think Ava deserves better friends anyway. I smiled. She does. It's funny how kids see the truth faster than adults sometimes, how they cut straight to the center without dancing around the discomfort. A few weeks later, I saw a photo online from one of Elle's gatherings. Everyone was smiling, arms linked, plates of food in hand. Ava wasn't in it, neither was I. For the first time, it didn't sting. It just confirmed what I already knew: we weren't missing anything. We were simply elsewhere, building something different. A family that made room without being asked. A home where everyone had a seat, even if their chair had wheels. And in that space, Ava didn't have to be the exception. She just got to be Ava. As for me, I finally stopped measuring my worth by how much I could carry. I stopped being the helper, the fixer, the wallet, the apology. I became something else, something lighter. A mother who doesn't flinch when her daughter tells the truth. A woman who doesn't shrink just to keep the peace. And sometimes, when I'm sitting alone with a cup of tea, I replay Ava's voice from that video. The calm, clear tone, the line that started it all: I just wanted people to know. She didn't shout. She didn't blame. She just told the truth. And in doing that, she changed the room, the party, the story, maybe even more. I know there are people who still think we went too far, that we ruined a birthday over a misunderstanding, that we should have handled it in private. But here's what I know. There's nothing private about a pattern. And the moment you name it, people will say you made a scene. That's fine, let them say it. Because sometimes the only way to stop being erased is to show up in full color and dare people to look away. Ava showed up. And because she did, other kids now know they can too. That's not drama, that's legacy. Story 2, Chris is my name, my age is 33. Put effort into it. I used to be the person who always showed up, if that's anything you should know about me. Sunday meals, holidays, birthdays, and moving days. Quiet, trustworthy, and never demanding anything in return, I was there. I accepted the call whether someone needed a dog sitter for the weekend or a last-minute airport pickup. It didn't bother me. Really? Everyone in my large, rowdy family spoke over one another, yet still finding room at the table, even when we were crammed into every available space. However, that warmth shifted at some point. Or perhaps I was too overcome with nostalgia to recognize it, since it was never there for me. The change was gradual. Death by 1,000 cuts was the result. When I volunteered to host a game night and nobody showed up, or when my sister Amanda neglected to inform me that Thanksgiving dinner had been shifted to our cousin Megan's house, I first dismissed the small things. I attributed it to a misunderstanding. Life becomes hectic, yet eventually it was hard to overlook the pattern. I used to feel like a visitor who had gone into the wrong house when I would enter family gatherings. As I got closer, conversations would become a little quieter. The occasional smile would appear a bit too late, and someone would invariably say, "Oh, I didn't realize you were coming." Something like that feels like a stone in your chest. I did, however, turn up. And now for Uncle Jerry's retirement celebration. He spent 42 years in the same factory. An old-fashioned blue-collar man, proud of his battered lunchbox and calloused hands. Jerry appeals to me. He was one of the only family members who never treated me like a second-class citizen. I thus made sure to clear my schedule when my Aunt Mary sent out an invitation to his celebration at the neighborhood VFW. Without being asked, I even contributed a few $100s to the decor and event space. A few weeks prior, Mary texted me to let me know that we were a bit short on the deposit. "Would you mind lending a hand?" "Sure," I said. "Thank you, but no." No affirmation. Just thought I'd help, and I did. The party night. I arrived early to assist with chair setup and hanging the congrats Jerry banner. It felt lovely, but it wasn't glitzy. When Jerry got there, he really embraced me. For a few hours, don't do that one-arm, shoulder pat crap. It was like the old days. Drinks, jokes, uncomfortable dancing, and many tales of work. Practical jokes and forklift accidents were all present. In fact, I was grinning. I had a sense of belonging once more. That is, until I made the error of being too happy. I said in passing that I would bring dessert to the family cookout tomorrow as I was chatting with Megan and Amanda by the snack table. When should I arrive there? Bewildered, Megan blinked and then cocked her head. You weren't invited, I see. I initially assumed she was kidding, but her expression remained the same. Amanda averted her gaze as the chip dish captivated her. Still clinging to the thought that this was some strange prank, I laughed. What time should I arrive, really? Megan shrugged a bit. It's more of a close family issue, I suppose. Yes. Finally, looking at me as if Mom and Dad wanted to make it brief, Amanda continued. Just the core folks, you know. That one struck a variety of folks, as if I were a long branch that was just barely clinging to the family tree. Then Megan pointed to the picture as Aunt Mary passed by drinking from a red plastic cup. Mary smiled and took her phone out. I never even requested to view it. She simply raised it. Looking through pictures of people's garden tables, sprinklers are being ran through by children. A massive personalized cake with the words Family Barbecue 2023 on it. And yet, a group photo of my parents, Amanda's children, uncles, aunts, and even the grandchildren of my former babysitter made the cut. Not a single frame included me. I just nodded, gave a kind smile, and stepped back from the discussion as if I had just recalled an internal phone call, not in a depressing sense. But my chest felt constricted, No more. Something sharper was involved. Chilly, concentrated. I stopped into the bar for another drink and sat down in the back, reflecting, passing through everything. Every check I'd written, every ride I'd provided. For years, I had always made excuses for them. I had been the additional hand, the extra money, and the family's silent safety net. The man who would never cause trouble. What's the kicker? Tomorrow is that cookout. I was fully aware of the location. My account had been charged for the leasing of the park space. "We only need someone with a clean payment history so it doesn't get flagged," Mary stated when I booked it 3 months ago. I would cover the deposit. I received the email confirmation. They didn't even bother to replace it. Something inside of me clicked at that very instant. I remained calm, not externally. Sure, it would have been wonderful if I had stormed out, flipped a table, or demanded answers, but it would have been too simple for them to portray me as the dramatic one. Rather, I told Jerry that it was wonderful to see him, drank my drink, and assisted with packing up the decorations. "Thanks for everything, Chris," he said. "Really? One of the excellent ones is you." I grinned. "Uncle Jerry, thank you for that." "I do." After that, I hopped in my car, headed home, checked my email, and selected cancel reservation. Less than a minute passed. With only one click, their small family cookout was without tables, access, or a permission. A bare area of grass with no contingency plan. I kept it a secret. I simply went to bed and slept soundly. My phone began vibrating the next morning. Just one phone call, one more, followed by texts. I didn't check them though. Not just yet, as I was well aware of the impending storm. I wasn't the only one left out in the rain for once. By tomorrow at 12:00, voicemails had replaced the calls. The first strident voice that confused Chris was that of my Aunt Mary. "Our reservation doesn't exist, according to the park. Did you accidentally cancel it? Please give me a call back." Next, my mother. "Why would the venue be canceled? Christopher? Everyone is here already. They're forcing us to go." Amanda comes next. Brief and agitated. Very mature. "Was it truly necessary for you to make this about yourself?" I laughed at myself in that one. They organized an entire event. Everyone was invited, except for me. I was the one who was suddenly making it about me. I remained in bed until about 2 o'clock. I didn't want to give them the gratification of thinking, not because I was being lazy. I was wondering what was going on and pacing about nervously. I was well aware of what people would think. "No reservations." "I apologize, ma'am. Yesterday evening it was canceled." "Indeed. The deposit was reimbursed." "No. A permission is required in order to set up here." "Indeed." At 3 p.m. "Another group is scheduled to arrive." "No, I will not dispute with you in front of kids." I opened my laptop, prepared myself a sandwich, and turned on some lo-fi music once I eventually woke up. It seemed strangely quiet. I was aware that they attempted to salvage the event in some way, but not by using park tables. Not in a pavilion that is covered, not with the large speakers they intended to connect. Not with a bouncy house, of course. I eventually checked my phone. At 4 p.m. 43 messages. Some came from my cousin Megan, but the majority came from Amanda and my mother. A couple from numbers I didn't know, most likely the positive ones. And tag-alongs who were attempting to understand what was going on and suddenly had nowhere to sit. Some of the communications were just pictures. One showed a number of foldable chairs arranged on a driveway. 3 individuals were gathered around a makeshift barbecue, and smoke was blowing into someone's face. It appeared to be wretched. Then I saw Uncle Jerry's one unexpected message. Simply put, "Give me a call as soon as you can." I paused. Jerry had always been nice. He wasn't worthy of being caught in the crossfire. However, when his wife Mary and daughter Amanda began ignoring me, he had also remained silent. He had been covertly involved. I had no idea what that call would bring. I still dialed. On the first ring, he answered. Like a man letting out a breath after a long day, he said, "Chris, I expected you to call. I noticed your message." I said plainly. A pause occurred. "Did you do it? The cancellation?" "Indeed." I didn't deny it or make it seem nice. I didn't feel embarrassed. A sigh followed by another silence. "You can't claim they didn't deserve it, though." However, it created a significant problem today. It certainly did, I said, not coldly, just honestly. "I didn't mean to ruin your weekend. I like you, Jerry. You're one of the few people in that family who's ever treated me like I mattered." He was quiet again. Then he answered, "You do matter. I just didn't understand how horribly they'd been treating you." I didn't answer straight away. I didn't know how to express that. It hadn't simply been one experience or one day. It had been years. Years of being the extra, the afterthought, the trustworthy one who never got invited but always got sought for help. "I'm not furious," I eventually said. "I just finished. You allowed that to remain." Then he spoke. "I hope you're not. However, I understand." Thus, the call came to an end. Later that night, Amanda shared a blurry picture of the backup party on her Instagram story, replete with mismatched outdoor chairs and throwaway dishes. The caption read, "Real family sticks together even when some people try to ruin the fun. Actual family." The irony was oppressive. I didn't participate. I didn't respond. However, the venue's reimbursement appeared in my account a few days later, $750. In Jerry's honor, I gave it to a nearby community center. A fundraiser was being held in order to improve their kitchen. Along with the contribution, I included a message to someone who truly deserves a celebration. After a week or so of radio quiet, Megan sent me a message. It was unexpectedly honest and lengthier than I had anticipated. She composed, "Chris, hello. I don't blame you. I realize you're probably still upset. Until you mentioned something during the party, I was unaware that you were not invited. I simply thought you were coming. I became aware of how twisted up it was after you left. For years, the family has been using you as a fallback option. Some of them, I believe, are also aware of it. But since you never retaliated, nobody has ever said. This must have been your push. I just wanted to apologize and let you know that I noticed it." I was surprised by how much that message meant to me. Not because it made things better, but because it proved I wasn't insane. I didn't respond, though. Not quite yet. In the days that followed, I was still trying to figure out what done looked like to me. More texts began to arrive. In a lengthy email, my mother explained that families have difficult times and that I shouldn't punish them by severing our communication. Amanda, however, went on the defense and posted cryptic comments, such as, "When people don't get what they want, you find out who they really are." At that one, I laughed. If only she were aware. In the meantime, for the first time in a long time, I began doing something new. I started to put money into the connection that gave me a sense of completeness. Once, I had pals that weren't related to me and didn't take advantage of me. I had little meals, asked people over, and went to the shore with a bunch of coworkers. The family wasn't finished yet, but I slept better and smiled more. I was heading home from work one evening, maybe 2 weeks after the BBQ incident, when I noticed a familiar-looking automobile parked outside my apartment. My mother wasn't by herself. She was seated in the front seat with Amanda, who appeared to have been practicing their words. They hadn't given a call, had not sent a text. They simply arrived. Keys in hand, I stood at the curb and peered at them through the windshield. Amanda was the first to go. "We must speak," she stated bluntly. "One error cannot compel you to abandon your family." I arched an eyebrow. One error. Next to climb out was my mother. "Sweetheart, we didn't want to cause you pain. However, damaging everything and canceling the park wasn't the solution. Everyone felt uneasy because of you." I folded my arms. "Feeling uneasy? It's really wealthy. For years, I've felt uneasy at your gatherings, but that wasn't an issue until I stopped giving them money." Amanda gave an eye roll. "This is becoming absurd. Simply acknowledge that you overreacted and rejoin the group." I cocked my head, a dry smile flickering at the corner of my mouth. I stated it at that point. "Would you like me to rejoin the group? Let's begin by apologizing, not a phony one. The whole family will see a genuine one." Amanda laughed. "You're kidding." "No, I'm finally serious," I said, and they were at a loss for words for the first time in years. My mother was stunned, as if she couldn't decide whether to chastise me or cry. Amanda, however, replied, "You've really let this go to your head," and she laughed more tightly than she could have. "You believe that just because you were offended, the family should publicly apologize to you?" I took a while to respond. I simply observed her. Amanda had been our family's queen bee for years. Vibrant, golden child. Voice loudest in the room. The majority of the pictures on our parents' refrigerator. She chose the location if there was a group activity. In the event of a dispute, she automatically prevailed. I once believed she deserved that position. I now understand that she just took it, and in order to maintain harmony, the rest of us gave it to her. I finally said, it's not about hurt feelings. It has to do with respect or the complete absence of it. Like furniture, I was invisible most of the time, but helpful when needed. If you want me back in your lives, I'm done playing along. Admitting your mistakes must be the first step. Mom tried to make things more gentle. Families are large, as you are aware. Individuals tend to forget things. Individuals make statements. Everybody has imperfections. I furrowed my brow. Defects. At the party, Amanda made fun of me while you stood there. Aunt Mary showed me pictures from an event I paid for but wasn't invited to. And you grinned. Mom, you haven't spoken for years. It's not a fault. It's a decision. Her mouth parted, then shut again. For that, she had no rebuttal. Amanda crossed her arms. What the heck? Are you simply interrupting us? You're not coming to birthdays or Christmas. Everyone will find it awkward because of you. I looked her straight in the eye. You already did. And with that, I turned and walked toward my front door. I could hear my mom's voice behind me. Tentative, weak. Chris, please don't do this. I paused with my hand on the door. Then fix it. Own it. Apologize. I stepped inside and closed the door gently, not slamming it. That made it worse for them, I think. I didn't cause any trouble. I didn't yell or curse. I was calm. Final. That's what rattled them that night. No one texted. No follow-up calls. Just silence for the first time. I think they genuinely didn't know what to do. The next few days were quiet. No new drama. Just space and peace. Then a week later, I got a message from Uncle Jerry again. It read, "Hey, I'm hosting a small dinner. Just a few people. I wanted to invite you. No speeches, no drama, just dinner. No one else from your mom's side will be there. Unless you say yes first." I sat with that for a while. I didn't reply right away. I went to the gym, took a walk, ate dinner, and thought. Then I messaged back, "Only if it's at your house, and only if you pledge not to mention the others." He answered, "Deal." That supper turned out to be just what I needed. Jerry, his neighbor, Dave, an old acquaintance from his job days, and me. We barbecued, watched a movie, and spoke about everything but family for the first time. I didn't feel like a placeholder. I felt like a person. I was beginning to comprehend something essential. Family isn't blood. It's not who shares your last name or who remembers your birthday because it's printed on a calendar. It's who shows up, who respects you, and who listens even when it's hard. A few weeks later, I shared a photo on Instagram. Just Jerry and I, captioned, "Toasting beers on his back porch. Your true family may inquire about your well-being rather than just what you're bringing." In a matter of hours. After liked the post, Amanda disliked it and then liked it once again. She texted me the next day. No salutation, no justification. All right, let's discuss if that's what it takes. Do you want an apology? Come see me on Sunday. Everyone will be present. I said I wanted it, and I got it. However, I also gained new knowledge. Occasionally, individuals express regret without actually apologizing. They act in this way out of fear of losing control over the person they formerly dominated. I debated whether or not to go while sitting with my phone in my hand. Did I come to their table only to hear clenched teeth and empty words? Alternatively, did I allow them to live in the mess they created? Because I didn't need their approval for the first time in my life. I was no longer a doormat for the family. Now it was me who had the authority. I spent a long time looking at the words. Everyone will be present. That remark stuck in my head like bait, tinged with a subtle hint of performance and guilt. I pictured Amanda standing with her arms folded at the head of a table, practicing a vacuous statement that was written more to protect her reputation than to admit any actual guilt. The rest of the family nodded along, not in agreement but out of tiredness, while my mother gripped her purse hard and fought back the tears she would summon on order. The sentences were already audible to me. We apologize if that is how you felt. Let's simply proceed. Let's not exaggerate the situation. Reconciliation was not what they desired. Containment was what they desired. However, I was no longer a problem to be controlled. Still a component of who I am. For closure, I wanted to utter something I had never said before, for once. It's out of clarity, not spite, to sit down at my own table, not theirs. I said I'll come, but I'm leaving if this is only a show. This time, I won't be courteous." Amanda gave a single thumbs up emoji in response. On Sunday, I arrived at the same family home I had been to since I was a child. It appeared to be the same white shutters and somewhat cracked flower pots. Even though no one was really watering, everything seemed smaller now, as if reminiscence had been muted. Before I even knocked, the door opened as I ascended the front stairs. Wearing pearls and the phony grin she saved for uncomfortable church potluck visitors, my mother stood there. "Chris," she remarked in a loud voice. "Enter." I gave a nod and went inside. The scent of roast chicken and cinnamon filled the air, soothing, known. There were several people in the main room. Megan, Amanda, Uncle Jim, Mary, and even my younger cousin Zach were all sat, rigid and too calm. At first, nobody said anything. They simply stared at me as if I were the room's elephant who had finally made the decision to speak. Amanda got to her feet. As if she were hosting a local news story, she thanked everyone for attending. We wanted to discuss every topic. I didn't sit. I remained close to the entryway. Crossed arms. Proceed. She looked at the others as though to want them to speak, but they all remained silent. So she went on. "We are aware that you felt excluded. We have discussed it. Perhaps we were unaware of the extent of your contributions to the family. Although it wasn't deliberate, things fell between the gaps. If I had ever heard one, it would be a non-apology. Is this your huge gesture then?" I said, admitting that I was there. "I've stopped paying for your parties now." Megan flinched. My mom cleared her throat. "Chris, that's unfair." "No." I cocked my head. Since Jerry's celebration was paid for by me, helped with groceries following Dad's knee surgery, and covered the cost of the BBQ venue. Zach's PC was fixed and rewired. Mary's lights. Shall I continue? Amanda appeared agitated. "All okay, we understand. You're the family's ATM and handyman. Would you want a medal, perhaps?" It was there. "The actual Amanda?" "No," I responded coolly. "All I needed was the same fundamental deference. At the table, you assign each other a seat. However, I suppose that is exclusive to the core family." At last, Uncle Jim said something. "That was not our intention." "What did you mean then?" I inquired. "You all posed for pictures and grinned as if nothing was wrong, when no one even considered checking after you planned a cookout and failed to include me, despite the fact that I had reserved the space. And subsequently, I discreetly ceased to appear." They were unable to respond, just the sound of someone moving uncomfortably in their chair and the ticking of the clock. "You all had years to speak up, but you chose not to. You took and I gave, and you treated me like the issue when I withdrew, as if I were exaggerating, as if I had to prove myself to be a member of this family. After searching the room, I eventually came up with a solution. I was never accepted. I served as a utility, a convenience. And you want me back now that I'm no longer that way so you can continue to take advantage of me. You're looking for a band-aid, not a dialogue." Amanda laughed. "You're being so theatrical, my God." "Then you may stop calling me that. That's what I said the previous time. When was the last time you made drama out of my boundaries?" "I'm finished." I meant it, too. I turned to go. "Hold on, Chris." My mom got to her feet. "Avoid doing this." I didn't turn around, but I halted at the entrance. "We were family, you always stated." "We stick together," she remarked. I turned to face her again, speaking quietly but firmly. "Remaining together does not equate to remaining when you are not desired. You didn't inquire about my well-being after I quit using tape and favors to keep this family together for years. You just became upset that I was no longer helpful." Amanda gave an eye roll. "What the heck? Are you simply ignoring everyone?" I opened the door and answered, "No, I'm simply at last making my own decision." I then left. Outside, the air struck differently. Crisp liberation. I didn't think I was the villain. I felt no remorse. That night, I felt clean. The family group conversation was erased by me. Amanda was blocked by me. My mom's texts were muffled by me. I wasn't spiteful when I did it. For peace, I did it. The stillness persisted for several weeks. Megan sent me another message. More straightforward this time. "I don't hold anything against you." I probably do the same. "Just be aware that not everyone in the room thought you were treated fairly. I'm available if you ever want to chat." Though I didn't say much more, I thanked her. I was not prepared to reopen that door. Rather, I began creating a better circle, something fresh. Friends who arrived without any necessities. It was my coworkers, not my bank account, who welcomed me because they enjoyed my presence. I even went back to dating, something I had shunned for years since my family's drama had left me exhausted. The old wounds continue to hurt. Holidays hurt less, although they were still difficult at times. When I told myself it wasn't selfish to leave, it was essential. I learned that Amanda had hosted a party for her daughter's birthday around 6 months later via a mutual acquaintance. Half of the family failed to show up. It seems that they were missing the man who usually made everything go smoothly more than they had anticipated. Hearing it made me grin because sometimes the best form of retaliation is simply getting rid of oneself. No yelling, no mayhem, just a strong, silent absence. I never received the proper apologies. However, I have something better. Return my life. Story 3. My daughter refused to sleep at home when she visited from college since I had given her bedroom to her cousin. I'll find another place to sleep. She hurled her keys at me while screaming. Even though I was furious, I didn't object. I had been counting down the days, and she felt bad about it a few days later. Emma, my daughter, was at last returning home. I was eager to meet her again because I hadn't seen her in months. She was only a month away from graduating from her last year of college. I simply wanted to see her, give her a hug, and celebrate her progress after everything I had done to ensure she finished school debt-free, stress-free, and without having to work herself to the bone. I was aware of her academic obligations. Even though I was aware of how hectic senior year was, I still missed her. I missed our conversations in the kitchen late at night. Her lessons, goals, and even the little things, like learning to make her own coffee instead of constantly purchasing Starbucks, were all things I missed. She used to give me a daily call. After then, it happened every several days. After that, once every 7 days. Now, I occasionally wouldn't hear from her for weeks. She wasn't upset with me, exactly. I didn't think so anyhow. She was simply preoccupied. That was my self-talk. At last, she was returning home. For a few days only. It was something, though. I desired perfection in everything. I prepared the guest room for her, cleaned the home, and bought her favorite foods the night before. She no longer had her former room. Since she departed for college, she had seldom come home, and I had to decide what to do because everything was getting more expensive. Josh, my nephew, was in need of lodging. I saw how difficult it was for a young guy attempting to establish himself since his parents, my brother and his wife, were having financial difficulties. I was also having trouble at the same time. I was a single mother. Everything had been paid for by me. Books, food, rent, and tuition. Costs. She shouldn't have to take out loans, in my opinion. After graduation, I didn't want her to be drowning in debt. I thus put forth more effort. I took up more shifts. To aid her, I took out equity on my home. Even so, it was insufficient. Josh's rental of Emma's former room was more beneficial than I could express. It provided me breathing room and partially paid off the mortgage. It made sense, to be honest. Emma had hardly returned. Her life was her own dorm room on campus. For years, her room had been vacant. Even so, I was still anxious as I prepared the guest room for her. The sofa transformed into a bed. Although it wasn't exactly the same as her bedroom from childhood, I had added more cushions and new linens, even a flower-filled vase to provide some warmth. It lasted for a short time. Only for the visit. Wouldn't that be okay? I heard a vehicle come up the following evening. My heart jumped. Grinning and full of excitement, I rushed to the door. Then she appeared. Emma was on the doorway. Lovely, matured. Not the same. Over the past 4 years, she had changed. She had appeared more composed and self-assured. However, she had a weary expression when she entered. I grabbed her bag. "Here, my love. Permit me." She brushed past me and shook her head. "Mom, it's all right. All I have to do is lie down." My heart warmed up. It must have been a lengthy drive for her. I grinned. Naturally. "For you, I prepared the guest room." She scowled. "The visitor's room?" I paused. "Indeed. Since Josh is currently residing in your former room." I noticed the shift as soon as I spoke it. She looked directly into my eyes. She stopped. "What?" I took a swallow. Josh currently resides here. My nephew is someone you know. Her voice increased. Your room was empty, and I needed the extra money. My room was given away by you. It's only a room, my dear, I said softly. It's been years since you used it. She turned to face the hallway after dropping her bag. She rushed by me, pushing open the door to her former bedroom, and I followed. Josh's belongings were present. His desk, his attire, his life. Angrily, she whirled back toward me. What the heck? I am now only a visitor. Emma, don't act that way, I said, attempting to seem calm. Now you're on your own, your personal life. I needed my room, and Josh needed a place to stay. She lost her temper. I believed I was returning home. I gazed at her with a sinking heart. You still call this place home? She gave a chilly laugh. No, it's not, Emma. She took her house key out of her coat pocket and flung it at me. It clattered to the floor after striking my chest. I'll find another place to sleep. She grabbed her luggage and yelled. Then she was gone. For a long period I stood there. The key was at my feet, shining in the light from the hallway. I stooped to pick it up. My hands were shaking. Behind me, I heard Josh enter the corridor. He had heard it all. Aunt Jo? Gently, he inquired. Are you all right? Yes, I did swallow, but I wasn't. I was wounded. I had sacrificed everything for her, and for the first time, I took action for my own survival. She pretended that I had deceived her. This was something I had been anticipating for months. However, my daughter had just left me, and I had no clue if or when she would return, so it wasn't a joyous reunion. When I discovered I was pregnant, I was 18, hardly an adult. My hands were shaking as I sat on the lavatory floor, gazing at the exam. I was unsure about my next course of action. When I informed my then-boyfriend Mark, who was 23 years old, I thought he would be astonished and even anxious. But I never thought he would respond, "You need to get rid of it. We must now speak." But what are your thoughts on this? It's just a straightforward, cold reality. The plan was for me to race it. I don't believe we had a disagreement. I just left him behind, packed my things, and went away. Because I was positive of one thing at that very time. I had this baby. I had no actual strategy and no money. However, I had Emma, and that was sufficient. She became my entire universe the instant she was born. Working long hours in a job I detested didn't bother me. Since nothing else mattered, I didn't care that I had to give up my ambition of being an artist. Just her. I always made decisions with Emma's best interests in mind. It wasn't simple. There was no husband for me. My family wasn't eager to assist. I thus handled everything on my own. To feed her, I got up at the crack of dawn. To pay for diapers and baby food, I worked late into the night and ran errands during my lunch breaks. She was my baby, and I wanted to give her everything, so I never complained. I may have begun pampering her for that reason. I didn't intend to. I had no intention of raising a self-centered child. However, I always felt bad about turning down her requests. Her father was absent. She was not supported by a large family. I therefore found a way to purchase the pricey shoes that every other student at the school owned if she so desired. For a new phone, she pleaded. My budget was a little more stretched. I made it happen if she sobbed because she was the only one who couldn't go to Disneyland while all of her friends were, even when I was unable to pay for it. Even if it meant foregoing meals in order to pay for her Christmas gifts. I wanted her to live a better life than I did, even if it meant putting in extra hours at work while she went on school excursions carefree. And it seemed worthwhile for a while. She was content. She cherished me. She continued to give me a hug before bed every night. Still called me the best mom in the world. But the older she got, the more entitled she became. She stopped saying thank you. She stopped seeing the sacrifices. When she wanted something, it was never a question. It was an expectation. And I let it happen. Because how could I deny her anything when I had worked so hard to give her everything? When it came time for college, she had options. She could have studied locally, lived at home. It would have been so much cheaper. But she didn't even consider it. He wanted a fresh start in a new city. She wanted to live on campus, experience real college life. And when I told her I couldn't afford it, she looked at me like I had failed her. "You always find a way," she had said, frowning. "You've never told me no before." I had spent 18 years sacrificing everything for her. And she expected more. I tried. I picked up a second job. I cut down on my personal spending, but it still wasn't enough. So I did the one thing I never wanted to do. I took out a loan on the house simply to make sure she had everything she needed, and she never even questioned it. She grabbed her stuff, embraced me, and departed. And for the first time in 18 years, I was alone. The first woman phoned a lot. She informed me about her classes, her new pals. But as time went on, the calls got fewer and fewer. She was busy. She had a life now. She still needed money, of course. She still sent texts begging me to cover her, rent her books, her nights out. She never inquired how I was doing, never inquired whether I was all right. She just assumed I could handle it. And until I was unable to, I did. The bills continued piling up. The home had been cozy and alive, but now it seemed empty and too large. And the mortgage was more than I could pay. Josh took up residence at that point, my nephew. He had always been a decent boy, responsible, kind, and respectful. He needed a place to stay because his parents had fallen on hard times. This was logical. The additional rent helped me remain afloat because I had an extra room that no one was utilizing. Josh was different from Emma. He didn't make demands. He volunteered to assist with household chores. In fact, he spoke to me. And I felt like I had company again for the first time in years, as if I were truly valued by someone. Emma, meanwhile, didn't really notice unless she was in need of cash. She didn't phone me to check in the last time. It wasn't to inquire about my well-being. It was to inquire about sending her $200 for a ticket to a show. I really can't afford that right now, Emma, I had groaned. She had sneered. She said, "You can't afford anything these days," and hung up. That was the end of it. My heart was hurting as I sat there looking at my phone. She didn't know, unaware of my laborious efforts. I had no notion that I had given up my whole future for her. Worst of all, he showed no concern. She so expected everything to remain precisely how she left it when she eventually made the decision to travel home for the first time in months. And I came to a realization when she pretended that I had betrayed her and showed Josh living in her former room. I had never been a person to him. I was only her mom, just someone who was there to fulfill all of her desires. Now, however, she was going to experience what it was like to lose something now. My daughter had just left, and I was sitting in my empty living room, looking at the door. With the exception of myself, the home was quiet. I wasn't sobbing quietly or softly, the type that makes your entire body tremble, the sort that originate deep inside your chest, from a location you were unaware was aching until it suddenly bursts. She hurled her keys in my direction. She bounded out. She decided to go. She hadn't phoned either. Not once. I waited. 1 day, 2, 3. Nothing. I seemed to be non-existent. Like all those sacrifices, all those years, and all that love were in vain. I realized then that something needed to change. I believed I was helping her for a long time. I believed that I was providing her with a better life, but I was mistaken. She was being spoiled by me. She learned from me that her happiness was more important than everyone else's. She had earned her degree now. She had everything that I had fought so hard to earn for her. She still had higher expectations. Today is the last day of that. My phone rung after 4 days. Emma. Before I picked up Mom, I let it ring twice. As if nothing had happened, she spoke in a casual tone, as if she hadn't simply left me. Has Josh left yet? I shut my eyes. It wasn't. I apologize. No. You are missed. Just. Has someone yet to empty my space? No. My voice was calm as I said, "He will remain. Hold on." Her voice had a grimace in it that I could almost hear. I wondered, what do you mean he's staying? Emma? He pays the rent. He assists me in my mortgage. He will remain. Quiet. Okay then. Then I'll find another place to stay. I let out a breath. All right. That was it. She hung up. She didn't inquire about my well-being. She threw her keys at me and walked away, without caring where I had been sleeping. However, she did accomplish something. She insisted that I cover her expenses. With Emma, it began modestly. "Hello, could you please send my rent as usual?" It was the first time in my life that I looked at the screen. I didn't regret not giving the money. I was upset. I carefully composed my response. "Me? Now you'll have to deal with that on your own." Then, 3 dots. Emma, what? Quit making jokes. The deadline is tomorrow. I didn't respond. She contacted her mother a few minutes later. Her voice was tight with fury as she spoke. "What are you discussing?" "Emma, I'm no longer covering your rent. You've always done so. I ought not to have." "I won't anymore," I responded in a calm voice. "You're getting your degree. You must begin to provide for yourself. You cannot simply interrupt me." I said. "I am too." She laughed harshly, incredulously. "How can I possibly afford anything at all? You land a job?" "Who's saying?" I slapped her. "A job?" "A job, Emma. However, I'm a pupil. Not for very long. I still need time to work things out, though. You have 4 years to make sense of the situation." As if I were being difficult, she huffed. "This is unbelievable. This is really unjust." "No," I answered plainly. "I have worked for you and made sacrifices for you my entire life, which is unjust. You still believe that I owe you more? That's over now." Then the shocking revelation. Another call a week later. Her voice was softer and lighter this time. "Listen, Mom," she said. "I've been contemplating. I understand that things have gotten hot in the past, and I completely understand your frustration. But now I have a plan. I was aware of what was about to happen. I intend to get a master's degree." I shut my eyes. She was, of course. "Additionally, the program is excellent. It costs a lot." "Yes, but it's well worth the effort. After this, I'll be a lot more employable." He exuded such confidence. "Yes, of course, yes," I would say. I was already shaking my head, but she was unaware of it. I responded, "That sounds fantastic, Emma. I'm hoping you can afford it." A strained little laugh followed the silence. "Do you want to pursue a master's degree, Mom? Obtain a loan?" She choked back the chuckle. "What do you mean, though?" "You promised to always be in favor of my education. During your bachelor's degree, I helped you. I said that I had 2 jobs. I obtained a loan secured by my home. I made every effort to ensure that you graduated debt-free. Did you too?" Quickly, she said. "And now? And I'm finished now." She fell silent, utterly silent. And lastly, "Are you serious?" "Indeed, Emma. I mean it." The first he broke. She was enraged. She insisted that I think again. "You can't just abandon me in this manner. My mama is you. This is your responsibility. Everything else was your responsibility. Suddenly, though, you won't." I refrained from arguing. I didn't even speak louder. I simply refused repeatedly. Days of fighting later, the rage subsided and the pleading started. One night, she sniffled into the phone and murmured, "Mom, please. I'm not sure how to handle this alone." I shut my eyes. I had never taught her how, so I knew she didn't. I was to blame for this. The only way she would ever learn was this. "It will come to you." I said softly, "I have faith in you." She cried, "Mom, I don't want loans." Desperate now, she said. "I'd rather not struggle. You never intended for me to suffer. I also never wanted you to be pampered." I stated, "But it's time to correct the error I made." She sobbed more, but I refused to back down. She would never change if I gave up, so I didn't. Furthermore, I refused to allow her to continue stealing from me. She had had enough. She would have to be able to stand on her own 2 feet now. Despite our numerous discussions and my repeated refusals, Emma didn't trust me. She continued to believe that I would reconsider. She went for that reason. No interaction. She didn't really want to break up with me, so she didn't. She believed it would punish me, so she did it. She reasoned that if she ignored me for too long or cut me off entirely, I would scurry back and ask her to mend the things I had broken first, that in order to have my baby, I would have to pay again. However, she was mistaken. And everything truly came apart when she at last recognized it. I didn't hear anything about her at first. I allowed her to become totally silent and block me on everything. I did not make a call. I didn't send an SMS. For the first time, I realized she needed to experience the repercussions of her behavior, so I didn't plead with her to return. She would be proven correct if I followed her and attempted to make things better. That I would return every time. That I would do all in my power to keep her in my life. The hush continued as I waited. Days, weeks, months, nothing. I assured myself that this was necessary and that I was okay. However, I was sitting by myself at the kitchen table, looking at my phone in the middle of the night when the house was too quiet. Her call went unanswered. It ached that it missed her. It was painful that she stopped talking to me as soon as I stopped paying for her. She continued to view me as nothing more than a wallet, despite everything I had done, all the sacrifices, all the love, and years of putting her first. What's the worst? He took pride in it. Her relatives told me about her. At first, she had had difficulty. She believed that her degree would immediately get her a well-paying job. However, businesses didn't want her since she lacked experience, internships, and practical abilities outside of school. She detested being rejected for the first time in her life. However, she blamed me rather than embracing reality or advancing like everyone else. The smear effort began at that point. She presented her version of events to Josh's parents, my brother and his wife. Mom left me. As if I were nothing, she tossed me aside. She allowed Josh to replace me. She cares for him as though he were her own child. In my mind, I could hear her voice fabricating a narrative in which she was the victim. They first believed her. Joanna, my brother, called me. What on earth is happening? Why is Emma telling us that you just left her? I inhaled deeply before telling them everything. I informed them of the costs of the luxuries, the rent, and the tuition. I said that in order to save Emma from having to work, one had taken out a loan secured by my home. How? I had sacrificed my life and worked myself to the bone for years so she might have a debt-free future. How to? She interrupted me as if I were expendable the moment I urged her to get off my feet. There was a lengthy pause when I was done. My brother then sighed quietly. Joe, I apologize. We didn't know. I took a swallow. Josh wasn't spoiled in that way, was he? He chuckled. No, God. During his time in college, he worked part-time. He never received anything from us for free. So why did I muttered. Another pause, then gently. Since you were alone yourself, you wanted to ensure that she never felt as though she had enough. I shut my eyes. Emma didn't have a father, and I'd spent my life trying to make up for it. All I had done was render her incapable of living on her own, despite my best efforts to shield her from hardship. Perhaps she needs to learn. Gently, my brother said. He couldn't see me, but I nodded. Yes, I said. Perhaps it is. Emma didn't communicate with everyone, not just with myself. She didn't simply interrupt me. Because my brother, sister-in-law, and even Josh didn't agree with her, she cut them off. Because the falsehoods were not believed by them. She therefore acted as though she didn't require any of us. She pretended to be self-assured, as though she were succeeding without me. However, she wasn't. She was barely making ends meet while working low-paying temporary jobs. My sister-in-law had accidentally ran into her, so I knew that. She seemed worn out, Joanna, as if she hadn't had any sleep in weeks. She's having trouble. I said nothing. Will you not make contact? She inquired. I let out a breath. No, since both Emma and I had already made our decision. I concentrated on myself rather than pursuing my daughter. I could breathe for the first time in decades. I had time, money that belonged to me. I went back to painting. I hadn't taken up a brush or let myself to be anything other than a mother for such a long time. And I was pleased to have my first painting show at last, not only because I had created something for myself at last, but also because my work was being displayed. At the point she entered, Emma. When she noticed the self-portrait, which was a younger version of myself carrying a baby, she stopped gazing at the paintings while she was standing in the doorway. Under it, she read the plaque. A life paused. And I witnessed it. The guilt, the comprehension, the awareness. She turned and met my gaze on the other side of the room. She approached me cautiously and carefully. This was painted by you, she muttered. I gave a nod. He took a swallow. I had no idea you were a painter. You didn't inquire. She cast her gaze downward. She remained silent for a long time. Then, at last, in a little voice, Do you want to get together for dinner sometime? I observed her. She had changed appearance. Less spoiled and less entitled. More human. I knew this, but I wasn't sure whether I could forgive her yet. I'll give it some thought. In her life, for the first time, she accepted that response with a nod. And perhaps, just possibly, that was sufficient. Kindly share your opinions with me in the comments section.